2024 Stag Bowl champions, North Central Cardinals.
And we keep things rolling here on a super edition of the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, joined with the one and only Paul Chivari. And of course, because it is a championship type of weekend, that is what all the talk this week is going into. We had to make sure that we brought some class, some championship knowledge here to our amazing audience of the Sports Cubicle. Paulie, what do we have for everybody around the water cooler today?
Well, we have a two-time national champion, head coach of the North Central Football Cardinals. It's Brad Spencer joining the Sports Cubicle today. Brad, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be on, especially today.
So we're a month removed from your most recent national championship. You guys defeated Mount Union. Tell us a little bit about the season. It seemed like you guys didn't face too much adversity until the first quarter of the championship game, the first time you guys ever were trailing. Talk about the season and how you guys were able to be so dominant and become champions this year.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Everything starts with your players and your staff. Just a wonderful group of seniors. We had 38 senior leaders this year, and they just did a wonderful job of really owning the team, taking responsibility. When it comes from a player, it's culture. If it comes from a coach, it's Kool-Aid, right? So to be able to have a group of guys that can lead in the way that they did from the front was really important. And you saw that in the game, a little bit of adversity to begin with and able to overcome and keep pressing forward the rest of the game, really do a great job of controlling the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, and finishing in championship games. That's so much of where the game's won and lost is situational football. And then in the fourth quarter, and our guys just did a great job. And I think it's a testimony and a credit to our coaching staff all year, making sure that we're focusing on situational football, focusing on finishing, focusing on worrying about our input, our process, so that we can have great output and, not getting too wrapped up in uncontrollables. Had a turnover early. They capitalized. We're down for the first time all year in 15 games. And the guys really, didn't flinch. They didn't bat an eye at it. They just kept doing what they do and were able to eventually, take over there in the fourth quarter.
So when you're in the middle of the recruiting process, Coach, how important is it to find those type of X factors when it comes to, not only is it going to be tough on the field in the moment where you've had all the success all season and now it's at this big time moment, all the spotlight is on you, but also in the classroom, being individuals outside of the field, when you're recruiting for an institute, a program that you obviously hold near and dear to your heart, what goes into that process for you and the coaching staff?
Yeah, great question. A number of factors. I think number one, you always want to be looking for young men and families that are going to value the same things that you value. So if you value hard work, you value dedication, you value the line of scrimmage, you need to look for guys that value that. And we're always looking for guys that love to compete, love to win, and, want to be around a great culture with great teammates. And that extends to our campus community. I think that extends to the community at large here in Naperville, having people that, really want to be elite, that want to be great. We talk with our guys all the time about, keeping the switch on, and whether that's in the community, in your relationships, in the classroom, or in the football field, the best don't turn it off. They keep it on. And, I think this year our guys were just a great testament to that. We had over 90 guys with 3.0. We had 11 guys that had a 4.0. In the classroom, we had 3 academic All-Americans. That's doing it in more than just one facet. And I think the more that you can look for like-minded individuals that want to get up, want to be great, want to be elite every single day, you're going to have a chance to continue to move that needle, continue to have success. The last thing you want to do in any situation, but particularly if you're a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, is get yourself around folks that don't want the same things as you. Because those, people, that low-hanging fruit, the people that are below you, are going to pull you down a lot easier than you're going to pull them up. So we're always trying to find more guys to, add to our culture, add to our climate, that are going to help raise our standard each and every year.
Paulie?
When you're recruiting some of these guys, what's kind of the first thing that you're telling them about your program or about the campus?
Right. I think one of the first things that we're going to want to try and touch on with them is a little bit of what I just said. Do you want these things? We talk a lot with our guys about, you like it, you love it, or you live it. And, we've got to find guys that want to live, our culture. So that's going to be in the classroom. That's going to be in relationships. That's going to be in growing your faith. That's going to be in growing your relationships with professors, coaches, people in the community at large. I mean, it's not just come here, play football, be an All-American, win national titles. Those are all things that we can't guarantee, but I can guarantee that you're going to be coached holistically. I can guarantee that you're going to be around people that are going to support you, whether that's on the field or off the field. And, that's where everybody has, a piece of the pie or a puzzle piece. Everybody's important to this whole process. It's not just a head coach and an All-American quarterback or defensive lineman. It's everybody. It's scout players, it's athletic trainers, it's staff members, it's administrators. It takes a community to win championships.
Listen to you talk about the culture and when you're recruiting and winning in between the lines and I guess also the growth, right? Like trying to spiritually grow somebody and also as an individual, as a football player. When you come across players today from when you were playing, when you were a student to now coaching and all the different times you've been elevated from positional coach to and on, you've seen the development of all these players mentally and how they're growing up in this world. How supportive or how much do you have to live in the world of the transfer portal or people just going on to different places and, their lives changing, whether they've learned a lot of experiences from you? I mean, you guys are kind of going to go through it in different ways with the graduating class and people moving on in their phase of life. But somebody like you, who's been top tier player, top tier coach, top tier program, and now in this world, how do you interact with that? How do you grow with that? How do you and the players and staff all kind of are journeying together in this new world of NIL, transfer portal, players and families having a lot more say in this process?
Yeah, fortunately, I think our program has always focused on the right thing. So it's always been faith, family, and academics. And how do we win championships doing things the right way? And so I think in a lot of ways, we're almost built for this time. We've been built for this time. If you look at what's going on, so much of college football has, at the higher levels particularly, has become transactional, and we want to stay transformational. We've always been transformational. It's always been about being an All-American father, husband, and teammate. And so I think the more that we can focus on those values, the more you focus on the mission, I think the more likely you are to accomplish your goals, which are more field driven. In terms of NIL, transfer portal, it's all helping us. Our process of recruiting transfers has not changed. It's always going to be about finding guys that, yes, number one, you have to be talented. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have that recruit sitting in my office. But beyond that, do you fit culturally? Do you believe in our messaging? Do you believe in, being a team first person? It's not going to be about individual accolades here. I mean, if you look at our 2023 team, we had more All-Americans, more All-Region players than we'd ever had before, but we lose by one in a national title. All of a sudden, those individual accomplishments, they don't mean anything. This year, we have less of those types of individual accomplishments, and you win a national title, and you see the value of everybody having a piece of the pie and how important that is. And that's what lasts, the relationships, the championships, individual awards, you tend to forget about those types of things. But we're seeing with the NIL transfer portal, that transactional piece at the upper levels where, D2, 1AA are pulling down, D1's pulling up. we're actually getting funneled more talented players than we've ever seen. And we've always been about development. So we've always been about developing 17 and 18-year-olds, bringing them into our program. That's never changed. And now with bigger schools offering transfers and older kids more than they are younger kids, there's just even more great young kids coming to North Central. I mean, you can look at our social media and you see that. The quality of student athlete continues to go up for us. And I think that correlates with the success of our program as well. But I really just feel like, our holistic approach to coaching and how we deal with young men, it fits right now because it's transformational. We're not trying to just find the clicks, find the likes, find the graphics. I think that's why you don't see our best players trying to level up. They're staying here because they love their teammates, they love the school, they love the culture, and they love winning.
Coach, this is something that I think really caught my attention was, let's say last year, right, with the losing by 1 point, the heartbreak of heartbreaks, right? And anybody who's been an athlete or does anything competitive in life has had those great moments of when you succeed, but also the failures that stay with you. But I wonder, when you talk about the achievements of individuals and then the team all being in together to finish the story and win the championship and put a bow on that phase of life, how do you and the coaching staff, how do you and the community, how do you message the idea of we were this close and we have to do X, Y, or Z to be this much better, to redo this entire journey, to get back to this one moment, to be better than just 1 point? How do you message that? How is that? How do you guys go into that?
Yeah, well, for us, it was number one, I think it's about being real and be transformational with your kids and with your team. Be honest about where we broke down. Be honest that, I failed as the head coach. First and foremost, I failed and that's my fault. And, you have to have extreme ownership in that and own that and be honest about where your shortcomings were, and then be honest with your team about where the fact is we lost by 1 in a game that there were a million mistakes by myself, by everybody, and we were still right there. So what if we're performing at a higher rate? Now you're looking at, okay, you could potentially win by a number of scores. So then you got to go to work and go, okay, this is what we're going to work on. This is where we're going to be real about it. And then we're going to carry that through the off season, making sure that we're just real honest about where we're at, and I think that's where then you can replace, pressure and failure with, stress. Stress is not a bad thing necessarily. You have to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And if you're not in that zone, then you're not growing. You're either in a panic zone or you're in a super comfort zone. You want to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And at the forefront of that is honesty. And at the forefront of that is hard work. So, Roger Federer had a great speech to Dartmouth at graduation this last summer about how he's the all-time singles winningest tennis player. And his winning percentage was like at an 80% clip. But in those, matches where he won 80% of them, he lost 48, 49% of the points. And so he talked about how you have to very quickly overcome failure if you want to be a champion. And I think there's just a lot of truth in that. You can learn from wins. You can certainly learn from losses. I think people tend to learn from loss a little bit easier and quicker, but the challenge is, applying it. And to us, I think that was the importance of, okay, what can we learn from this road? What can we learn from why we maybe lost that game? Because our loss previous to that was in a national championship game, but we lost by 30 points, so it's a different loss than losing by 1 point. So I think just being real is really what you have to do. And then also, now the position we're in is you have to continue to understand that you have to push the envelope. You got to move the needle. You can't just hit copy paste. You have to continue to find, ways to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit better, but then also evaluate where is that team and what does that team need? Coming out of 21, going into 22, that team needed different things to win a national title. Coming out of 23, going into 24, that team needed different things to win a national title. And it's just, I met with our seniors this week. We were having our meeting, and there's a lot of great things coming out of, okay, what were the differences in the last 3 years? You've been a part of all three since you're a freshman. How can we apply that going into this year with this year's chemistry, this year's mix? And just being super aware about it, understanding that there's going to be new challenges. We're not trying to be last year. We're not trying to be 22. We're not trying to be 19. We have to be 2025. We just want the same result. So how do we get there? And to me, it's, like I said, stress and being uncomfortable is not a bad thing. Pressure and lack of honesty, that's a bad thing. So you want to stay away from those things.
We are having an awesome conversation on this super edition of the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. He's the one and only Paul Chivari, and one of our own, one of the local kids done great. It is Coach Brad Spencer of North Central College, your defending champions. And you on the YouTube channel over in the Sports Cubicle, you're looking at the background of Coach's background right there. You see two footballs. Are those some indicators of some local championships, maybe, perhaps? But Paul and I were talking about just how cool this story is, and Paul and I really wanted to highlight your time with the program and watching it grow and being part of the community. How cool has that been? I mean, we joke around of how cool it is to show off the wins, but watching the community grow behind you, watching these athletes, watching these kids that are part of the Pop Warner or the travel leagues and the high schools, and all about 6A, 7A, 8A football. Yep. Illinois is a great football state that doesn't get a lot of love. How cool has it been for you to see the growth of the state football, of the high school ranks, of your community from high school to now being a two-time national champion coach for North Central College?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a big believer in Illinois high school football. I mean, I went to Naperville Central, won a state championship there, so I'm obviously going to be a believer. I think the best football in the country is in Illinois. If you look at the All-American list in Division III, that supports that. Our roster is 79% Illinois, and it's from all over the state. It's not just western suburbs, south suburbs, north suburbs. It's all over the state. We take a lot of pride in keeping Illinois kids here. We take a lot of pride in winning with Illinois kids. And I think there's something to be said about the toughness, the grittiness of the players that we have. We want to be real football players, block, tackle, run the football, stop the run, win at the line of scrimmage. You win with offensive and defensive linemen. They're the most important people in our program. You could ask any player who the real football players are of North Central, and they're going to tell you right away, the linemen. But being a local guy, obviously it's a unique story. I played here for 4 years, coach here now 21. I grew up on campus with my father working here. So in a lot of ways, I've spent all 43 years of my life at North Central College. That's very unique for any level. But I do think there's an added pride and desire to work for the alumni base that we have, for the people at North Central. I mean, our AD's been here, I think nearly 40 years. We have other faculty, administrators, same thing, 20, 25, 30 years, So I think that says something for the community, says something for North Central College when you have that many folks sticking around. If you look at our staff, it's very heavy on alums, and that's not a slight or a disrespect to those on our staff who aren't alums. I love those coaches, and they're fantastic. But to have so many alums, I think, does send almost a nonverbal message of culture, of belief in one another. But it's great seeing the Illinois talent that we have. And the NFL actually is before COVID. They had some sort of study out there about where the top first round draft picks have come from state by state. And Illinois was in the top 5. And I think most people think about Texas and Florida and Georgia, California, and there's certainly high-end talent there. There's high-end talent everywhere. But I can tell you in my 21 years of recruiting, most often our best players have come from Illinois, and that's why we try and blanket Illinois. We'll pick pockets around the country to really try and focus on certain positions and certain schools or conferences in particular, because they've translated well to being college football players for us. But we love Illinois kids.
Paulie?
So I noticed looking at North Central's history, kind of season by season, the program really turned around about the time that you started playing for them. And at first I'm thinking like, okay, so Brad Spencer alone has kind of changed this whole program, but then kind of research more. John Thorne also seems to be a big reason why this program turned around. How much has John Thorne's coaching been a part of your coaching? And also your high school coach, Joe Bungie, how much of him is in your coaching style?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start with Coach Bungie, who's still around. I still talk with him. In fact, one of my old neighbors was one of his best friends, coached with him for a long time, Coach Mitz. But, Coach Bungie was a no-nonsense, hard-nosed guy. And so I think playing for that in high school in the 90s, late 90s, watching the success, they'd been to a state championship in the mid 90s, and then we went back in 99. Then my brother's team in 01 went back. You were just around a lot of success. And I think you learn what it took to win. And, that was precision. It was hard work. It was dedication. It was commitment to each other. My senior year in high school, when we won the state title, our team motto or our t-shirt said, "My teammates are great." And it's a simple message, but we really bought into it. And, now as a coach, you see that. You see the value in relationship and teammates and how important that is on championship teams. But I think Coach Bungie and his staff, many of them I'm in touch with still to this day. And I get text messages from, one of my sophomore coaches, Coach Stein, who ended up being the next head coach in Naperville Central. He texts me every single game day. He was at the national championship in Texas. And I have a lot of other coaches from there that I'm still in touch with. I think it's just the foundation, of hard work, commitment, and being a champion, that I learned from Coach Bungie. And then, my sophomore year here in 2002, Coach John Thorne took over, and Coach Thorne was, a legendary high school coach here in Illinois, winning many state championships, going to many more, especially in the 90s. So it was a dream for me to play for him then in college. Like he was in a lot of ways what kept me around here. And then being a captain for him, being able to see his philosophy and just how he used faith, how he used relationship to build a program, was key. Everything changed when he came in, everything. And so, you saw him come in, and we went from 3-7 to 6-4 to then 4 years later winning our first conference title. For him to take a dormant program at the bottom of the CCIW and in 5 years win a conference title is remarkable. And then equally as impressive was his son, Jeff Thorne, taking over in 2015. And within 5 years, going to our first national title and winning our first national title, also equally as impressive. When you just think about those time spans, it's really, really short. Coach Jeff, his first year as head coach in 2015, we were 7-3. And 5 years later, we were 14-1 and won a national title. That's incredible. So though their philosophies, how they coached, and with Coach Jeff particularly, he was really ahead of the game offensively in terms of scheme, how to use players well, how to break down a defense. I learned so much from him I worked for him for Jeff for 18 years, as his position coach when he was the coordinator, and then as his coordinator when he was the head coach. you learn, I mean, you learn a lot. You're around those people a lot. So I really credit them, for putting North Central on the map and then taking us to conference championship level caliber to national championship caliber level, and then, when I took over in January of 22, the responsibility is to keep pushing that needle and raise the program's, standard even more. It's, one thing to go to a couple of national titles, but to be able to go to 5 in a row, win 3 of them, that's a whole nother level. And just like with our seniors right now, we're talking a lot about, to be able to repeat is a whole different echelon of championship level team. We've been able to win every other year, but to win 2 years in a row is a totally different type of domination, so that's our challenge. And, really, I like to say that's our opportunity that we're really excited about.
Paul, you got one more for Coach?
Yeah, I mean, so, given the track record, 44-1 record, the one loss was the Stag Bowl where you guys, just couldn't get the 2-point conversion. Any regrets on going for 2, or would you do that a million times over?
No regrets. Obviously that's my fault. And, I needed to have the kids in a better position to convert there. But also there's 59 and a half other minutes in that game, that we've got to do a better job, and I've got to do a better job of coaching so that, we don't have personal fouls at the wrong time. We don't have offside penalties at the wrong time. We don't have failed red zone attempts. Those are all, things that we needed to shore up, and that's my responsibility. And, I feel like coming into this year in 24, we did a great job of focusing on some situations in practice that could prepare us better. Which is, it's been funny because I don't think we attempted a 2-point conversion all year this year. But we had a nice bag of plays for them, I'll tell you that. But also, the other thing, that we really invested in a lot was just how we manage our young men in terms of recovery, health, rest. We included a lot more rest and recovery this year throughout camp, throughout the season, used a lot more data-backed information that I think really helped us, in terms of health through it was once we started playing games, it was a 17-week season, with 2 bye weeks in there. So I thought there was a lot of positive that came out of that. And again, that just goes back to, okay, yeah, we lost a game by 1. It's really easy to look at the 2-point conversion and say, should we go for it? Should we not go for it? But the fact of the matter is that there's 59 other minutes of the game, that we can evaluate and improve upon. And I feel like we really did, and like I said, that starts with me, giving better direction to our coaching staff, which then filters down, to our players. And, I felt like we were really prepared for any of those types of situations. And obviously as a head coach, you learn things from all scenarios as well, how you might handle things differently and, play that chess game differently. But, I felt like the guys, they just really owned that 37-38, and it almost became like a mentality. We had signs up. It was a very strong motivation. Same way right now, we have signs up about, going back to back and, about the 2 losses that we've had in national championships, and how we can better prevent that and prepare ourselves in a way that, maybe the ways that we had shortcomings there won't happen in the future.
Music to Chicago football sports fans' ears, a coach that is coherent, takes responsibility, and just awesome at his job. He is Coach Brad Spencer. Coach, we're going to let you go right now. We know you're super busy, so yes or no on these 2 ones, okay? 1, yes or no, Ben Johnson, a good hire for the Chicago Bears?
Heck yeah. Yes.
Number 2, speaking, you know what it is to be a champion. Will the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat as Super Bowl champions?
Wow. Yes.
There we go. Coach Brad Spencer from North Central College. You were amazing. We are so proud of you here in the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago. Obviously, you've done some amazing stuff. Somebody who's from District 214, a Elk Grove Grenadier, spent some summers at North Central during summertime. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the program. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Anything you want to Chicago, anything you want to promote, anything to help out the program, floor is yours before you leave.
Just really appreciate the support. Being on ESPN was fantastic. We've had so much positive news from that. I mean, you, of course, can follow all of us on social media and any of the support. We love the coverage. Anytime that our young men and our program can get in front of folks on a national or regional level, I think it's great because they're going to represent North Central College, really, really well. So, appreciate it. And, always anything, I always tell alums, hey, you can do two things for us. You can give our guys jobs or you can donate money. So either those two things we always take.
We appreciate you, Coach. He is the coach, the champion coach of the North Central College. He is Brad Spencer, a local boy, done amazing. Coach, thank you so much for joining us here on the Sports Cubicle.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it, Mike Paul.
We got a full edition left here on Super Sunday. I'm Mike Mercado. He's Paul Chivari. You're listening to the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 and WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago.